Okay, today you are going to be solving two-step equations again. Okay, the first group of problems that you have today will all look very similar to each other. So in this case, we've got a y minus 2 in the numerator, and it's in the denominator is a 2, and it's equal to a 10. Whenever you see a problem where you're solving for a variable and you have this in the numerator or anything bigger than this anything bigger than this binomial, this y minus 2 in the numerator, when there's only a 2 down here on the bottom in the denominator, the first thing you want to do is multiply both sides I'm going to say by this, and then we're going to that right there. So when you see a problem and there's multiple terms in a numerator, and there's just this one constant in the denominator, there's one very simple step that will eliminate this denominator, okay? And that is to multiply both sides by whatever that denominator is. So if you right now multiply both sides of this equation by 2, these 2's on the left-hand side cancel out. The only thing left now on the left-hand side is the y minus 2. And on the right-hand side, if you multiply 10 times 2, you get 20. And you just turned what looks like possibly a difficult problem into a very simple problem because you got rid of that denominator. And when I say got rid of that denominator, you removed it from that side of the equation because you multiplied both sides by whatever that denominator was. So now all you got left is y minus 2 equals 20. And you've been solving problems like that for a long time, so you add 2 to each side. And y is equal to 22. If 8 is equal to x minus 3 divided by 5. This is the same concept, but now the fraction and the variable are on the right-hand side of the equal sign. So you want to remove this, 5, and you do that by multiplying both sides by 5. That allows these 5's on the right-hand side to cancel each other out. And what you're left with is 40 is equal to x minus 3. And if 40 is equal to x minus 3, then you can add 3 to each side. And 43 is equal to x. You will see a problem today that looks something like 6 1/2 is equal to x plus 5 divided by 2. First step will still be the same. It'll be to multiply both sides by 2. Which removes this denominator. These two cancel each other out. And 6.5 in those calculators, that's 6 fraction button 1, fraction button 2. So 6.5 or 6.5 times 2, 13, is equal to x plus 5. And then you can subtract 5 from each side. So 13 minus 5, 8 is equal to x. Questions so far? Any questions? All right, the last type of problem you're going to see in your first group will be g, let's take g minus 5, put it over 4, and make it equal to 7/4. Again, you're trying to isolate the variable. You're trying to get this by itself. So you're going to do that by multiplying both sides by 4. Now watch what happens here. The 4's on the left cancel. And look on the right. Same thing's going to happen. Those 4's are going to cancel each other out. So you're left with g minus 5 is equal to 7. And then you can add 5 to each side. And g is equal to 12. In the second part of your assignment, the problems will look something like 15 minus b is equal to 19. Now, anytime that you see a negative in front of a variable, you need to be careful, okay? In this case, you're trying to isolate, what you're trying to isolate is this right here, this negative b. Which means that this positive 15 is on the same side as the negative b. So the first step in a problem like this is to subtract 15 from each side. These 15s cancel each other out. This all falls down. This negative b falls down. And a lot of times what happens is students forget this negative sign in front of the b. So this negative b is equal to 19 minus 15, which is 4. There's still one step left here. When you've got a negative sign in front of the variable, you divide both sides by -1. What that does is it eliminates this negative sign in front of the variable. And it leaves the variable by itself as a positive. And then on the right hand side you have 4 divided by -1, which would be -4. It's a very simple problem, but it gets missed a lot because of the negative sign in front of the variable. You have to be careful. Another problem you'll see is something like 20 minus 4h is equal to 4. Now let's make it equal to 5. And in this case, you're trying to isolate this. And if you're trying to isolate this, there's a positive 20 over here that has to get moved or removed. So you would subtract 20 from both sides. The two 20s will cancel each other out. The negative 4h is what comes down. And 5 minus 20 would be negative 15. Now, just like the problem before where it had a negative in front of the b, this time you have a negative 4 in front of the h, you're going to divide both sides by negative 4. These 4's will cancel out. And in this case, h is going to be equal to, you've got a negative divided by a negative, which is a positive. And 15 divided by 4 is probably 3.75. Let me show you one more that you're going to see today. And they're putting these in there today because it's not that they're difficult, but these problems get missed a lot because of these negatives. Here, I make this, let's see, this next. A lot of people look at this problem and they'll see this minus sign right here and they will add 3 to each side. But that doesn't remove that positive 3, does it? Okay? You're trying to isolate this. That's what has to get by itself. That's a positive 3 over there with it. So you subtract 3 from each side. And again, these 3's cancel. And all of this falls down. All of this negative x divided by 2 falls down, and it's equal to 6. Now, this negative sign that's in front of the x over 2, okay? If you multiply both sides here by negative 2, real important, you're multiplying both sides by negative 2 to get rid of this negative sign in front of the x. Because a negative times a negative is a positive. So this all goes away. And you're just left with an x on the left-hand side. And 6 times negative 2 is negative 12. So the problems aren't real difficult, but there's areas where you have to be real careful when there's a negative in front of the variable. So please, when you're doing the problems today, the answers are on the bottom of the worksheet. Please check your answer after you finish each problem. And if you get one wrong and you can't see what you did wrong, come see me so we can get it fixed. Okay? So on a separate sheet of paper today, this is the page 91 handout. You're doing 26 through 37. And please show all your work. Please don't do the assignment on the notes that you just took so you can save those notes in your notebook. Take out a clean piece of paper, put your name, date, and period number on it, and put all your work on that piece of paper, please.